It's Something to Offer with your host, Anne-Marie Offer. Her guests are Ben Brody, whose work has been shown at Leroy's Cafe, Audrey Brown, Clinical Coordinator at St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital, and the legendary television and radio talk show host, Joe Franklin.
Hello and welcome to Something to Offer. Do you have a dream or a goal you've been thinking about, working toward, or put on the back burner? This show focuses on people who are going after their dreams and creating their own personal success. And I'm very pleased to have with me today Ben, Audrey, and the legendary Joe Franklin. And they'll share with us what it takes to really challenge your dreams. My first guest is a very intense and gifted artist whose work has been seen at Leroy's Cafe, Ben Brody, and I want to thank Ben for being here. I started to think of another Ben for a minute when I hesitated with Brody. Ben, I want to ask
Only
you,
if he's great.
No, he's great, but he's an actor. So I want to ask you, when did you begin to pursue art?
Well, I think it was always an interest of mine since I was a child, but I think it took me till just a few years ago to really realize that I had to be serious about it if I was going to pursue it as a type of profession or something, because I thought I'd just wake up one day and suddenly I would be able to do it, and I didn't have to put any work into it. But I think once I grew out of adolescence, I realized that you really have to work hard at something if you really want to accomplish anything great. And then, I just started to go at it, basically.
And study. I want to ask you, talked about adolescence a little bit. You had quite a relationship with the IRT at a period in your life, and I wondered if you could talk about that a little bit.
Well, when I was a teenager, I used to like to paint subway cars. That was a fond pastime of mine, to get out my anger and stuff like that. But it just, I mean, that was part of it. I was searching for what I really wanted to do, and it attracted me at that time. And, I appreciate having done it. I think it was a very interesting and dangerous experience. But, I don't like to deny it. I really feel that it makes my art part of what it is, really.
Do you think it was an impetus to move toward what you are now doing now? Yeah,
I mean, it helped me to realize how much I really didn't know. At that point, I thought, oh, I'm so great. My work's on the subway, and everybody, knows who I am, and I'm sort of notorious. And then I began to realize suddenly that I really wasn't able to do all of the things I really wanted to do, and it was at that point finally that I realized I needed to get some kind of training. And that's when I went to the Art Students League, and I started to study anatomy and life drawing, studying classical art and stuff like that, so I would have the foundation of technique to use as a springboard towards whatever kind of work that I would want to do in the future.
Can we look at some of your work now, if that's all right with you?
Sure.
I mean, you brought some, so I thought
Sure.
it'd be a great time because you've talked a little bit about how it evolved. So I guess we'll start with the pictures, and Ben will talk to us about them.
Okay.
I think they're going to close up on the pictures now. Okay, that's not the whole picture. Okay. You can talk about it, Ben.
Well, this is an Iranian ewer, actually. I studied it at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and I don't know, it's pretty self-explanatory, I guess. I really enjoyed the form.
Or is it, what is that? The
No,
medium that you're
it's
using?
rendered in colored pencil,
Oh, okay.
and I don't really know how long it took me to do it. I probably worked on it off and on for a couple of weeks, but I really, I saw it and I saw how beautiful the form really was, and so that attracted me to want to try and recreate it.
It's beautiful. We better move on to the next
Sure.
one because I'm getting a little high sign here. This one, I saw this in the show and it was incredible, this shot. So much going on in this.
Well, this piece is really inspired by Michelangelo, who of course is one of my favorite artists, and I really was searching to try and emulate some of his technique and anatomical understanding. So that's actually one of my favorite pieces.
Yeah, I love that piece. Can we go on to the third piece?
This is sort of just a piece that I was having fun. I was trying to take some of the understanding that I had gained through studying the figure, and I created this totem pole. And
I'd like to see the whole totem pole if we could. I don't know if they can pull that back on that, because
it's a little bit more popular than some of the other stuff, because you know, the other stuff's a little bit more old-fashioned. I think people can kind of relate to this a little bit more.
They're great. I love your work. I've seen it before, and I would just want to ask really quickly before we move on, do you have any shows or places we may be able to look for you in the future? You don't have to give specific dates or anything like that.
Well, I'm trying to negotiate a group show right now down in the East Village, but I haven't really gotten an affirmative sign on that. I know the person wants to look at my work personally, you know, and see if it has the right kind of ambiance for his place. So, you know, as of now, I'm not really sure what's going to happen with that.
Okay, well, we'll just keep looking in the papers for Ben Brody and his work. My next guest, we're going to move on, we're going to come back. My next guest is a very dedicated and warm head nurse who is in the cardiology unit at St. Luke's Roosevelt, Audrey Brown. Audrey, thanks for being here. I'm so happy you were able to come.
Thank you,
And it's important to me to have people on in the medical profession, and I wanted to ask you, of course, like I like to ask everybody, but I want to ask you in a different way. I know when I was a little girl, I thought I wanted to be a nurse, but of course I've done other things. Did you want to be a nurse when you were young, or when did your desire to help people in that way come about?
Well, Anne Marie, when I was young, I used to like to go into my mother's emergency kit and take out the mercurochrome and the Band-Aids, and I would paint up myself and my little brother. And then I started taking ballet lessons, and I really thought that I, at one point, wanted to be a dancer, but I just knew that there was something else for me to do, and I really seriously felt that I would never dance my way out of the studio. So I did some volunteer work in a hospital, and I liked what nurses did. And so based on that experience and helping people, I felt that I wanted to be a nurse. So.
What was, if you could describe a little bit, what's the training like? Is it difficult? How does one get through that training period of nursing?
Well, the training is very difficult, I would say. There's a lot of studying. There's a lot of many hours that you spend trying to research, do papers. It's very important for you to know all aspects of nursing before you get out into the field. So they really set up a program that's meant to not only train you, but to weed out people who are not going to make it. And so that's pretty much what happens. And it's such a difficult program that if you decide to go into the armed forces, I believe they make you a first lieutenant, because it's really like boot camp.
It's really
severe. Yes, you spend a lot of hours.
Let's, if you could describe a little, you're a head nurse, or I know they have other names now for head nurses,
Right.
and I don't remember all the titles, but you can give them. And what is that involved? What does one do? What are the responsibilities?
Okay. Well, being that nursing is changing as rapidly as healthcare is, the title is changing also. And right now my title is clinical coordinator, but you know, I'm sure in the near future it'll probably change into something else, which will hopefully strive to identify the increasing amount of responsibility that one has being in charge of a floor. And unfortunately, you know, when you say you're a clinical coordinator, not a lot of people really fully understand what that means because it doesn't say you're a nurse. So, you know, I still say to people, I'm a head nurse, but I have a little bit more responsibility than that. So, and that entails helping to account for the budget on my unit and
Coordinating your staff.
coordinating my staff, quality improvement, developing of policies and procedures, and tools that identify areas where I need to work on. So there's a lot more that goes on.
I want to ask you, how did you, or how does one develop a bedside manner, as it were, to, you know, the way you deal with patients, their families, in terms of, you know, severe illnesses and things like that? How did you develop that, or what is your personal technique?
Well, I think it comes a lot from the way that you would want to be treated, and also putting yourself in their position and seeing you and wanting to be as professional as possible. And also listening to the patient. Sometimes you may not necessarily understand what it is that the person needs when you go in, but after you listen to them and a few, you know, little experiences with them, you really do understand how their care is supposed to be for them.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has their own little nuances, and, you know, that's very important to the person that's sick. So.
Okay, I wanted to ask you about burnout, but I'm running out of time. But do you have one thing? How do you deal with burnout?
Well, I try to relax when I get out of work. I meditate. And just make sure that my time outside my job is meaningful to me.
Good. Thank you so much. We're going to talk a little more later. I'm going to move on to my next guest, who's my last but certainly not my least. And he's a very warm, generous, kind person, television and radio personality, the legendary Joe Franklin. I want to thank you so much. It's like my greatest honor to have you with me today.
My honor to be here with you. And I was just telling our distinguished nurse that I took medicine in college, but I feel better now. And I especially enjoyed Mr. Brody's painting of the Grecian urn.
Yes.
Ask me, what's a Grecian urn?
What's a Grecian urn?
Depends what he does for a living. Beautiful.
But I'll bump, yes. I want to,
Yeah.
this career, this legendary career, how did it all begin? You were a record picker for a radio station? Is
I
that the
was
right?
choosing the records. Did I mention that I got one of my highest ratings when you were on my TV show about a month or two ago?
No, really?
Got me a high rating that night, and we made a reciprocal deal. I want the audience out there to know, for Anne Marie to come back on my show, and for me to go on Anne Marie's show, and it's happening today. And right, so it shows that some promises are kept. It's not always. I hate the word sometime. Everybody says, let's do lunch sometime. Let's do something. When I hear the word sometime, I grab. I say, when?
Make a date, right?
Don't you hate the vague sometime, right? Let's do lunch sometime.
Right.
Anyhow, so we're doing lunch, so it shows that we kept our promise, and I just began as a kid choosing the records for a man named Martin Block on a long ago radio program called the Make Believe Ballroom, and he liked me, got me my own radio show. I was then about 17. Then one day, about 1950, I get a phone call from Channel 7. They were only on the air then from 5 o'clock at night till sermon night. There was no daytime TV. They asked me if I want to do an hour day on TV. They told me they liked my style, my speaking voice. So I said, Joe, if we give you an hour, what'll you do? I said, how about I do a show of kids dancing, a show of people talking? They said, you can't do a show of people talking. Where's television? Can't do a talk show. You got to give them vision, seltzer bottles, pratfalls, baggy fans, you know. I said, well, how about if I do a show of kids dancing to records, because rock and roll was just getting big then. They said, who's going to watch kids dancing to rock and roll? Who comes along? Dick Clark.
Right.
Becomes a billionaire. But I defied them, Anne Marie, and I think I did what was the world's first TV talk show, nose to nose, eyeball to eyeball. And I've had so far 300,000 guests. I've been on TV 25,227 times with my own show, and I'm looking to take a little station break at the end of August. I think you might have read about
Right,
it.
I've heard about
to work
that.
on a company called Joe Franklin Productions. But at the TV station, they think I'm kidding. They think it's only a hoax. They think I'm not really going to quit. But I'm going to try to take 3 months off to work on a public company called Joe Franklin Productions, which is traded over the counter. And we're going to be doing sitcoms and doing a nostalgic restaurant chain, you know, with Eddie Cantor's meatballs and
Like Joe's something.
Clark Gable's matzo balls,
Right.
and Charlie Chaplin's noodles. They're all nostalgically flavored hamburgers and things like named
Wow.
after celebrities such as Anne Marie. And it'll be, and we're going to do wraparounds to my old movie library. So I'll be showing these on TV channels all over the country, and for home video use, and a mail order division, and you know, all kinds of nostalgic activities.
So by no means will we not see or hear from you anymore.
I will not forsake TV, because you know, TV never forsook me. And I may take a little time out to since I invented the talk show, I'll take a little time out to sort of reinvent the talk show. I'll rejuvenate it and overhaul it, and I'll come back early in 1994 with a totally new concept, a whole new format in talk shows. I'll
That
sort
would
of-
be great.
something revolutionary, something outrageous, something, you know, something totally untried and untested. You know, I figured to myself, what could be that different the 44th year from the 43rd year? Nothing really. So I got to sort of shake it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Change it. And, you know, you got to
Air out the linen, right?
Yeah, I'm not calling it a retirement. I'm calling it just a little
Hiatus.
a hiatus or a sabbatical or a station break. I'm going to go in a sense from the control room to the boardroom. I've always been envious of Merv Griffin Productions and Johnny Carson Productions. In fact, I tried to wind down the exact same time when Johnny Carson wound down about a year ago, but I couldn't undo it that time. But I've been jealous of Chuck Barris Productions and Dick Clark Productions. So now I have Joe Franklin Productions. I'm going to, you know, do a lot of behind the scenes and create new TV talk show personalities, new Joe Franklins, and it'll be a lot of fun.
That's great. I want to ask you if when you started way back when you were 17 years old, did you have any idea? Was there, did you have the far off vision that this is where you were going to be?
I figured I'd stay in that field for about 2 weeks
Really?
and then go back and graduate college, which I never went back to college. But the people I've met along the way, the presidents who came onto my show. In fact, I was reading the other day in a column, people who never did a talk show. It said where Cary Grant never did one, Charlie Chaplin never did one, Elvis Presley never did one, a few more like that, John Wayne. I had them all. I got the old photographs of the Kinderslopes. So I had all. Nobody discovers anyway, but I gave the first exposure ever on TV to Barbra Streisand, Bill Cosby, Flip Wilson, Michael Jackson with the Jackson 5 family, Bruce Springsteen, Eddie Murphy, Joan Rivers, Liza Minnelli, Al Pacino, Dustin Hoffman, and I guess the list is endless of people.
I'm sure it is. I want to, you just answered that question, and I had a question for you. You have really made it, I don't know, I choose to call it a mission, to really encourage and foster new talent and really encourage people to go after their dreams, which my show is about. And I wonder when you took that task upon yourself in terms of being a talk show
I just
personality.
never learned how to say no. I really didn't learn. I used to go out with Jimmy Durante at night, and we'd walk in the street, and somebody would say, "Jimmy." Remember the name Jimmy Durante? A little bit before you.
Yes.
They would say, right? They would say, "Jimmy, will you come to my church on Saturday night and do a benefit?" He would say, "Yeah, sure." But when Saturday night came, he couldn't be there because he already had a gig, a paid engagement somewhere. He never learned how to say no, and I never learned how to say no. If I can't book people on my own show, I try to steer them to other programs. I just never learned how to say no. And, Billy Crystal sort of created a character of me trying to help obscure people, like dancing dentists and people who whistle through their nose and people who play the spoons, which I never did that, but he created that character of me being a little bit eccentric sometimes with my booking of the guests, and I went along with it. Like Jack Benny went along with the target of being frugal. Remember Jack Benny?
Frugal, the cheap,
the cheap guys,
tightwad or whatever they call them.
So I went along with I've gone along with that to the extent that I do try to help everybody. Try to help. You get 1,000 people, they want to be on a show like mine. And most of them have a need to be turned down, by the way. If somebody wants to come on my show, I'll say, "What's your specialty?" They say, "Well, religion or finance or nutrition or romance." Or I'll say, "Well, have you written a book? What's your qualification? What's your credentials?" They don't have any credentials. If I put them on my show, they won't respect me. They figure if Joe puts me on his show, he's hit the pits. He's hit the rock bottom. Most of them have a need to be turned down. But even though they've got that need, I still try to pitch them to other shows elsewhere. So I'm just nice. I never learned how to say no. And it's like the advice I give young actors. They always ask me for their advice. For my advice, I say, don't leave your wallet in the dressing room. That's number one.
Yeah, I know that one. I learned that the hard way.
Really? And number two, lie on the back of your resume. No. But on a serious note, I try to tell them, that it's persistence. It's if you believe in it, it happens. It really and truly happens. And not to be cynical or bitter, but in show business especially, you got to have the representation. The talent, sad to say, is sometimes secondary. It's called show business. It's a business.
And that's the hardest part for most artists.
You take who's David Letterman. He's great. He's really good. But I mean, to get $42 million, he's got the right agent behind him. He's got a man named Michael Ovitz, who's the biggest man in California. If you got the right agent and who knows how to negotiate, you do well. So the whole trick is, the whole pavement pounding concept is very offensive to me. So I tell the young people, try to get an agent or a manager to submit you. That's even more important than making the rounds and knocking on doors. You know what I'm saying, right, Emery?
Right, exactly.
You're a bright lady. You got to try to get somebody to open the door for you.
And kind of be behind you.
Precisely.
Pushing you through, and
Right.
then you got to go through the door.
Right, but I still say there'll be a huge market for talk show hosts. It's a blossoming field with 500 new cable stations about to begin. It's a wide open, talking heads will always be there, right?
I hope so. I hope I'll be one of those talking
I
heads.
guarantee you'll be. I'd like to be your discoverer.
Oh, good. Well, we'll work on that. We have a couple more seconds, and I want to just ask a little bit. You are an expert at memorabilia. Did that start back in the early days when you were picking records, or when did you start to interest begin?
Martin Block got me my own show in a kidding way. He said, "Joe, don't compete with me." As if anybody could compete with him. He was the king of the new records. But I figured, all right, so to be different, I'll play old records. And I went out to junk shops and bought records for a penny. Old Eddie Cantor's, old Al Jolson's, old Bing Crosby's. And I'd come on the radio and say, "Ladies and gentlemen, here's a collector's item. It's worth $500. I'd made up these ludicrous. Then I'd go back to the junk shop the next day, put down a few pennies, walk out with 3 records. The guy would say, "Hey, come back here, kid." I said, "What do you mean, kid?" He said, "I heard somebody on the radio last night saying these old records are worth $500 a piece." I sort of created the rare record market in my own innocent way.
So you gave that guy a break. You started to make money for everybody.
I built up the. I created such words as collector's items, memorabilia, collectible, sentimentalia, and memory lane. All my
and
phrases.
everybody's banking on that now with everything: collectible cards, collectible this, collectible that.
Nostalgia
Elvis
is sweeping
yeah.
the world.
It really is in all facets. I want to thank you. We're not going anywhere, but we're going to open up the discussion to all 4 of us, and this is a group segment which I like very much. If you have any questions for each other or myself, you can ask them, or I have questions if you want me to ask mine. So, does anybody have anything?
Group therapy? No.
Well, you could think of it that way. I don't know.
You're in charge.
Oh, I'm in charge. Good. All right. I want to ask, who influences or inspires you to do the work you do, or who has in the past?
Starting with?
Okay. I would say my patients, seeing them get better and just helping them to live their daily life as best that they can.
Noble profession, really.
It is. We need more nurses and doctors. Ben, what about you? Who's in?
Well, I think life inspires me. First off, I mean, basically just enjoying living and enjoying looking at things. And I mean, I like I said before, I like Michelangelo and I like Leonardo. I like a lot of the old masters. I like the Greek art and Egyptian art and Indian art. I mean, it's not really any one thing. I just enjoy experiencing things and looking at things that I've never looked at, or even things I've looked at a million times, trying to look at them again.
And see them a different way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really an underrated experience. I don't really think a lot of people appreciate looking at things. It's just like, oh, that's a cup. You know, they've seen a million cups, but it's not the same cup.
Right.
You know, it's always under a different circumstance, in a different situation, a different place, and I think we take seeing for granted. And I hope people really can open up and learn to appreciate what they're looking at and not become droned or overwhelmed by fast action cinematography. It just burns out your retina. You know, they need to slow down and take time with things and really appreciate things.
Okay.
I would guess that I'm motivated. I would guess that I'm inspired by the gratification or the rewards or the kindness and the respect that I get from people who watch me. I came here tonight in a taxi cab, and the driver didn't want to take any money from me, which happens to me at least once or twice a day. He says, Mr. Franklin, when I came here from Lebanon or whatever, from Minsk or Pinsk, whatever it was, from Siberia, he learned English watching me on TV, you know, because even though maybe sometimes I'll speak rapidly, but my diction is very clear. And the man says he learned English, and I hear from kids all the time, there's a man back there goes to radio, TV school, and told me that his homework from the teacher is to study Joe Franklin's technique on TV. So I guess the kindness and the happiness I get from nice people around me is what motivates me to keep on going. You know, the mortality rate in my field since I began is staggering. There have been about 400 talk show hosts came and went since I began. 400 in New York City area alone. I guess I've become kind of a rock of Gibraltar. You know, the world changes, values change, meanings of words change, but Joe Franklin still sits there with a collar, with a tie. I say, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So it's, I'm kind of a habit, and it's, that's my motivation, knowing that I'm something solid in a changing world. You know what I'm saying?
Right, and I know one day I was with you and we were walking down the street, and so many people are like, "Hi, Joe," because you motivate people. I mean, the people you have on are motivated to, you know, make a stand for whatever their career is or their goal. They really affirm it, and then.
I think, Anne-Marie, that I'm like you, and I'm not being facetious now. I think that we're both what you would call organic. We're from the bones. We're real. We're not trying to be slick. On any other talk show where somebody says, "How do you feel?" It says on a card, "Fine."
Right.
Everything is scripted. On this show and on mine, there's no pre-production meeting. We sit down here and we chat. It's almost like when you go to dinner with somebody, you don't rehearse your dialogue before dinner. You just let the conversation flow, right? So I think that's, I don't say that always works, because look, on other shows, they don't do it as spontaneously. Right. But for you and me, it works, right?
Right, and now we got to go. We can't let it flow anymore.
Flow.
I want to thank each of you for being with me today and sharing your lives with our audience.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for tuning in. And if you'd like to contact us, please do. And until next time, be well. Thank you.
This is Beverly Ritchie from all of us at Something to Offer to all of you. Dare to dream and go for it.